When Dale passed away, I was 43. It's been 20 years now, and here I am, 63 years old. I've been alone for so long. People still call me young and elegant, but no one knows the emptiness I feel deep inside. They see me as strong and independent, but they don't see the desires and passions that have been building up within me for years. My step-grandson Michael is 19 years old now. He's mischievous, warm-hearted, and loves physical affection and closeness. Spending time with him has always been easy and fun. Kendall wasn't my biological daughter, but we've always had a close stepmother-daughter relationship. When Kendall, busy with her career, asked if she could leave Michael with me for 2 weeks, I immediately said yes. I understood her, and honestly, the idea of having company to ease my loneliness sounded nice. After all, Michael was family. What could go wrong? But how could I have known that Michael would catch me in such a moment? If only everything had stopped at that one moment he walked in. But no, it didn't. Maybe you'll judge me. Maybe after hearing my story, you'll be angry with me. But what I experienced was too real to keep hidden. I'll tell you everything right from the beginning, and I'm sure once you start, you won't want this story to end. That day, Michael had gone out to meet his friends. The house was quiet. While scrolling through social media, I thought of this man I'd been messaging a few months ago. He'd been writing to me for a while, but I just couldn't gather the courage to respond. This time, I decided I would send him a photo. I wanted to catch his attention, really make an impression. I positioned myself by the window, the silky fabric of my robe brushing against my skin. It draped off my shoulders delicately, just enough to make me feel elegant. I opened the camera on my phone and tried a few poses to capture the perfect shot, but every time it felt like something was missing. "Come on, Gina," I whispered to myself, "show him you're still a woman." Just as I loosened the strap of my robe for one last pose, it happened. I felt the door behind me slightly creak open. My eyes immediately shifted to my reflection, catching the movement behind me. Michael stood at the doorway, holding a glass of water. His eyes were wide with shock, his face frozen in place. He had seen me like this. My heart was racing, pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. Shame, adrenaline, and deep down, a forbidden thrill I couldn't quite name all swirled inside me. "Michael," I finally said, my voice barely a whisper, but he didn't say a word. His eyes were locked on me, unable to look away, and in that moment, I knew everything was about to change. If only it had stopped at that one awkward moment. But it didn't. This story is far from over. Before it gets any crazier, make sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. And don't forget, at the end of this story, your support through likes and comments will mean the world to me. I quickly pulled my robe closed, trying to compose myself. My heart was still pounding, but I took a deep breath, desperate to act like everything was fine. "Michael, were you home?" "I thought you'd gone out," I said, my voice shaking uncontrollably. Michael's face turned bright red. He dropped his gaze to the floor, then tried to look back at me, but his eyes couldn't stay fixed on mine. "I just came to get some water." "I forgot something," he said, his voice shaky, a mix of excitement and nervousness. For a moment, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to break the awkward silence hanging between us. "Ah, okay," I murmured, pulling my robe tighter around me. "Everything's fine. I was just busy with something." Michael glanced at me for a split second, and I couldn't miss the mix of shock, curiosity, and embarrassment in his eyes. I think I saw what you were doing, but I mean, He stumbled, struggling to find his words. I quickly turned off my phone screen and placed it on the table. "It was just a few pictures," I said, trying to sound casual, as if nothing had happened, nothing important. But the warmth on my face betrayed me. I knew I couldn't hide my embarrassment. Michael took a small step back. "All right, sorry if I interrupted," he said, his voice still shaky. He scratched the back of his neck, his eyes darting around the room, looking everywhere except at me. Then, as if he needed to escape, he quickly added, "I'm going to my room. See you later." He backed out of the doorway, his footsteps retreating down the hall. The only thing left behind was the soft sound of the door closing. I sank into the couch, clutching my robe tightly around me. My heart was still racing, pounding so hard I could feel it in my chest. I couldn't quite put into words what I was feeling: embarrassment, adrenaline, and somewhere deep down, a strange and forbidden thrill. That day, Michael and I didn't see each other again. The silence in the house seemed to seep into every corner, but it wasn't enough to quiet the chaos in my head. I couldn't stop thinking about the look on Michael's face, the expression in his eyes, shock, embarrassment, but also a hint of admiration. It was as if he'd truly seen me, all of me, and that thought stirred something deep within me. That night, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't sleep. The excitement I felt had turned into a mix of shame and undeniable desire. The thought that Michael might have admired me in some way awakened feelings I hadn't experienced in years. I kept asking myself why I was feeling this way, but I couldn't find an answer. The next morning, Michael didn't even come down for breakfast. I couldn't tell if he was even home. By midday, a text came through on my phone, and it shaped the rest of my day. "I'll be out all day. I'll be back tonight." Part of me was relieved, it gave me some time to avoid seeing him. But another part of me felt disappointed. I was trying so hard not to let these feelings take over. To distract myself, I started scrolling through social media. I ended up messaging that man I'd tried to take photos for yesterday. At first, the conversation was light and fun, but soon it shifted to another level. Every word from him pushed me further, stoking the excitement that was already bubbling inside me. It turned into a bold, grown-up conversation, one that made me feel things I hadn't felt in a long time. That's when it hit me: the emptiness inside me was like a volcano waiting to erupt. I didn't know how to calm myself down. The thrill was overwhelming, suffocating even. Then I thought about that silky, revealing nightgown I'd worn the night before. I remembered how elegant it made me feel on camera. Without thinking twice, I put that nightgown back on. The smooth fabric rushed against my skin, and the feeling gave me a strange sense of comfort. I fixed my hair, lightly touched up my face, and headed downstairs to the living room. I settled in front of the TV, flipping through channels aimlessly with the remote in my hand, but my mind wasn't on anything playing on the screen. The effect of the messages still clouded my thoughts, and Michael's absence made me feel even more free. I stretched my legs comfortably along the couch, the thin fabric of the nightgown clinging to my skin with every movement. I tried to relax, but the excitement bubbling inside me was only growing stronger with each passing second. As I sat there, still trying to find some sense of calm in that nightgown, I suddenly felt movement behind me. I was so lost in my thoughts that I wasn't expecting anything to break the silence of the house. But then, out of nowhere, the sound of the TV was abruptly cut off. I quickly turned my head, and there he was, Michael. "Michael, you're back early," I stammered, the words barely making it out of my mouth. My heart felt like it was about to leap out of my chest. Michael tilted his head slightly, a faint smirk playing on his lips, but his eyes were scanning me from head to toe. "Is this for that guy again?" he asked, his tone teasing and a little mischievous. "Not going to lie, you look really striking." My face flushed instantly. I nervously reached for the straps of my nightgown, trying to adjust them as if that would fix the situation. This isn't what you think, Michael," I said, my voice trembling. Michael chuckled softly and took a step closer to the couch. His gaze was oddly a mix of warmth and provocation. "It doesn't matter," he said calmly. "I get it." I took a deep breath, caught between embarrassment and the need to explain myself. "Michael, you need to understand," I began. "My husband, Dale, died 20 years ago. I've been alone ever since, and I guess I've been alone for so long that sometimes I let myself slip. This kind of loneliness, it's changed me, and now twice you've caught me like this. I wish it hadn't happened." Michael paused for a moment, as if carefully considering my words. Then, instead of sitting down, he stepped closer, standing over me. He spoke, "I know, and I'm not embarrassed anymore." His voice was low but steady. "Because I feel something for you, something I can't control, but honestly, I don't want to fight it anymore." His words rooted me to the spot. My heart was racing, and a whirlwind of emotions spun inside me. "Michael, this..." I started, but the words didn't come. I had no idea what to do or how to respond. Michael stepped even closer, his hand lightly resting on my shoulder. "You can judge me if you want," he said, locking eyes with mine, "but what I feel for you is so real I can't just ignore it." I felt his hand on my shoulder, gentle but firm, and then his fingers slowly slid the delicate strap of my nightgown off my shoulder. My breath hitched, the intimacy of the moment left me completely speechless. "Yesterday morning, what I saw," he said, his voice low and husky, his eyes fixed on mine, intense and unwavering. "It really got to me, and now," he said, trailing off, the words hanging in the air as I tried to pull my nightgown back up with my hands. I looked at him with a faint smile and said, "Michael, you're so naughty, but you know you're my step-grandson, and besides, you're so young," I said, my voice coming out in a mixed tone. I was trying to set a boundary, yet I couldn't suppress the turmoil rising inside me. Michael didn't seem to care about what I'd said, that deep excitement was still there in his eyes. "Isn't being young better?" he asked, stepping closer with a slight smile. "That way you can feel young too. And besides..." He paused, carefully looking me over, "I don't think you should let loneliness and social media wear you down anymore. You're being too hard on yourself." Those words froze me in place, they hit me straight in the heart in a way I hadn't expected. I was caught off guard, but at the same time, I was deeply moved. The way he spoke, far more mature than anyone his age, confused me and shook me to my core. What Michael said with such seriousness brought out feelings I had buried for so long. I tried to look away from him, but I couldn't deny the impact his words had on me. Michael looked into my eyes, and his words still echoed in my ears. Everything inside me felt like it was spinning out of control. I could feel the weight of the moment, yet I couldn't stop myself. Taking a deep breath, I stepped toward him without breaking eye contact. "Well then," I said, my voice low but steady. I stood up and let the thin strap on my shoulder fall. The last strap of my nightgown slipped off, and the silky fabric cascaded to the floor in heavy silence. Michael couldn't take his eyes off me. He took a deep breath, and as if he couldn't hold back any longer, he stepped forward. He was already standing, and now there was no distance between us. His hand wrapped around my waist without hesitation. The warmth of his touch enveloped my entire body, and my breathing quickened. "Has anything changed since yesterday?" he whispered, his voice low and filled with intense emotion. Hearing those words, everything became even more blurred for a moment. The excitement inside me mixed with shame, but at the same time, I surrendered to the pull that left me completely dazed. Michael kept his hand firmly on my waist while his other hand gently touched my shoulder. His eyes roamed over me carefully, as if he were trying to fully understand me. I could feel there was no turning back from this moment. It was impossible to ignore the determination and desire in Michael's eyes. Feeling his hand on my waist, it was like everything froze for a moment. All my thoughts, fears, and shame dissolved into the intensity of the moment. I took a deep breath and, unable to hold back any longer, leaned toward Michael. My lips brushed gently against his in a soft kiss. It was like a beginning, slow, cautious, but deeply intense. Michael seemed surprised, pulling back slightly, but then almost immediately he responded. The kiss quickly turned more passionate. I felt his fingers grip my waist tightly, and instead of stopping me, it only gave me more courage. Michael pulled back for a brief moment and looked at me. "Gina," he said, his voice filled with conflicting emotions. But before he could say anything else, I moved with him toward the couch. Michael slowly leaned back onto the couch, and I could see the depth in his eyes, both surprise and desire. For a moment, our eyes locked. Neither of us could fully predict what was going to happen, but neither of us wanted to stop. My hand slowly reached out, touching his shoulders. My fingers felt the warmth of his skin, and all the chaos, shame, and excitement inside me swirled together at once. But I didn't want to let go of the moment. Watching Michael lying back on the couch, I felt a wave of excitement mixed with hesitation, but that hesitation melted away the moment I saw the look in his eyes. Slowly, I raised my hands and touched the buttons on his shirt. My fingers trembled as I unfastened them one by one. Michael didn't take his eyes off me, not even for a second. When I reached the last button, I opened his shirt completely and slid it off his shoulders, letting it fall to the side. The warmth of his skin almost matched the heat of the excitement coursing through me. I leaned forward slightly, gripping the edge of the couch for support. I was right above him, my face so close to his that it almost touched. I looked into his eyes, those deep, intense, and determined eyes. Everything inside me was a whirlwind of excitement, fear, and those overwhelming feelings I was desperately trying to suppress. And at that moment, we both felt something undeniable. What I felt was something I had forgotten, something buried deep within me. In that instant, I lost control, and before I even knew what was happening, I felt waves of tension coursing through my body. As things progressed, those waves only grew stronger. I didn't understand what was happening to me, but I started to feel like I might pass out when I looked into Michael's eyes and saw his flushed cheeks, and the way his hair had fallen messily over his forehead. It only heightened everything I was feeling. To the right of us, there was a large mirror, and as I glanced at my reflection, it was like my mind had taken a photo I would never forget. The way I looked in that moment was burned into my memory. Before too long, Michael's hands found their way to my waist again, gently touching me. "Gina," he whispered, his voice low and full of emotion. That single word increased the tension between us even more. Michael, without thinking, let go of everything in that moment and surrendered completely. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about the past or the future, there was only that moment, locked in his gaze, consumed by the raw reality of what we were feeling that night. Despite all its complexities, I lay next to Michael on the couch as our quiet breaths filled the space. It felt like time itself had stopped. When I opened my eyes the next morning, Michael was still deep in sleep. Slowly, I sat up, gave him one last look, and quietly slipped away to my room. Later that day, my phone rang. It was Kendall. "Gina, I'm sorry, but we have to cut the trip short," she said. "We're coming to pick up Michael. We'll be there in a few hours." After I hung up, I felt a hollow emptiness inside me. What had happened with Michael was still taking over my thoughts, and now I had to face him. When Kendall arrived, Michael was carrying his bags. There was a silent exchange of glances between us. The look in his eyes was so intense it was enough to make me forget everything else, but no one said a word. He got into the car, and as I stood by the door watching the car drive away, I was left with a mix of regret and an indescribable longing. From that day on, everything appeared normal, but nothing inside me was normal. No matter how much I regretted it, I couldn't stop thinking about Michael and those moments we'd shared. What if he came back? What if Kendall decided to leave him with me again? Those thoughts both excited me and tore me apart. And then that day came. 3 months had passed. On the surface, my life looked the same as always, but for those 3 months, a storm had been raging inside me. When the doorbell rang, it was just another ordinary day. As I walked to the door, I wasn't expecting anything unusual, but when I opened it and saw who was standing there, my breath caught in my throat. Mike.